We are in the Big Apple, New York. Paul Jones and Sherman Hamilton. It is game day, the back-to-back for the Toronto Raptors as they take on the Brooklyn Nets. Sherm, Raptors had decent success, 8-5 on the first night, 6-6 on the second night with tonight's game pending, but it's a huge game. And before we get into it, let's look back. Last night, no Patrick Patterson, some professional efforts from Tyler Hansbrough, Chuck Hayes, and especially Steve Novak.
Yeah, Steve Novak was unbelievably good. And, you know, the reality is when you have a specific skill like Steve does in terms of shooting the ball, you've got to do it well and you've got to do it consistently. And we've seen time and time again him not play a few games and him get called on, and then he's ready to go and he's knocking down shots. And, you know, we talk about this bench and the consistency and the confidence they have. That's one of the reasons. You know, when you look down the bench, you call on a guy, he's going to give you what you expect from him. Chuck Hayes, again, the ability to defend one-on-one.
Yes.
You don't have to send help side rotation. That's huge in terms of having rebounding balance. And, again, Tyler Hansbrough, you know you're going to get the energy. You know you're going to get that fight, the physicality. And I think for Dwayne Casey, ultimately, the consistency and understanding of what you get night in, night out, regardless of how many minutes they played the game before,
right,
that's something that really bolsters your confidence that when you put them in there, you're not going to have that letdown that some benches do have around the league.
Sure, that's a great point. It's about the how,
Yep.
not necessarily the results, the how. And I think the how and the way the Raptors are doing it is what leads to the consistency. To that point, let's talk about Kyle Lowry. Fourth career triple-double last night in Minnesota. Didn't have a great shooting night, 5 of 13. His shot seems to be struggling. He told us in the locker room after the game he's going to pick that up. But when you look at it, he's doing the other things. Yes. The how, 12 rebounds, 10 assists. He's doing all the other things that help his team, and it's rubbing off. DeMar DeRozan standing in for a charge late in the game with 5 fouls. Lowry, by the way, blocked that shot and told DeMar, I was helping you out anyway. But the team's banding together, and it's the how, as we say, that's leading to the consistency more than anything else.
Well, you're right. In a game like last night, I thought Kyle was in the middle of the fight.
Yes.
He was the guy throwing blows in the heart of the fight. And I think what you need from your point guard, and I think Kyle has been able to do this, is that there was a lot of junk talking in that game,
Yeah.
a lot of clutching, grabbing, flopping, talking to the referees. Some guys were being a bit more physical. A guy like Kyle doesn't back down. He gets his team under control, but he's also leading the charge in the fight. And I think that's huge when you talk about a team trying to be a more physical presence team. You need guys who are going to be in the middle of the fight, and Kyle did a great job of that. And you made a great point. I've said this before. Kyle has the ability this season to play beyond the points.
Yes.
So regardless of what's happening with the shots, you're going to see, as you said, the assists, the rebounds, the drawing of the charges, the understanding how to be a leader. And I think it's been invaluable for this team. And the consistency that he does it with, Jonesy, it's unbelievable. And ultimately, those type of things that don't show up on the stat sheet, the triple-double's great, but it's that clutch play he makes in the crunch moment. Those are the things that might go unnoticed, but when you look at the tape, you see in that moment, Kyle made that play, and that helped his team get to the next big play.
Sherm, that's, we call it straight city.
Yeah,
I mean, a kid that's out there on the playground, and it's about winning, and Kyle even said it in the locker room after the game, it's about making winning plays at the right time. They're going to need some of those winning plays tonight. Patrick Patterson, as we mentioned earlier, out of the lineup. He was instrumental in the last win here against the Brooklyn Nets. Other guys need to step forward. And, Sherm, when you think about it, this is a huge game.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about Brooklyn, 31-30 now, above 500. They haven't been good on the second night of back-to-back, 10-5 on the first night, 4-10 on the second. But here's a team that's climbing the standings, and this could be a potential first-round playoff matchup. So a lot of maybe subliminal messages being sent tonight.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We heard John Wall say after that triple overtime win over the Raptors,
Yes,
that we needed to send a message to this team that they can't beat us 4 times in a season, because if we meet them in the playoffs, we want them to know that it's going to be a challenge. I think it's the same thing in this situation between the Raptors and Brooklyn. And, when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, we've talked about it many times. Do you necessarily want the Raptors to match up with them in the first round? Not necessarily. But having said that, you're right. If you can send a message, if you're the Raptors, and beat them and show them that, hey, if we do match up, it's going to be a dogfight and we can beat you, I think that's ultimately what you have to do. And I think at this point of the season, we talk about the standings and where everyone's going to fall.
Right.
The most important thing is to control your own destiny.
True.
And that's the next game in hand. And I think for the Raptors, they've got to focus on Brooklyn. They have to have that toughness. We talk about Patrick Patterson not being in the lineup, and he made a huge play late in the last game. Credit to Tom Sterner for the scouting. But they're going to have guys step up like we saw last night. Other guys filling in the role and doing what they do, and that makes this team successful. The collective effort and the responsibility, and more importantly, everybody being accountable when they're on the floor.
So don't forget, you can see the game. It's a 7:30 Eastern start here in Brooklyn. The Raptors and the Nets on TSN2. You can hear it on the radio side at Sportsnet 590 The Fan. And as always, we get you going with Game Day starting on NBA TV Canada at 7.